Hello and welcome to the Gooner Talk. You must be a glutton for punishment this morning if you are joining us to talk about Arsenal's 2-1 loss against Wolves. So let's just crack on with it, shall we? I'm joined by Johnny. How you doing, mate? Are you well?
Yeah, not too bad, actually. Not too bad. I think since the last time I came on, I purchased a little light to illuminate myself a little bit more. So I'm sure all the viewers will be there going, that guy is he's just illuminating the whole screen right now, getting banged for my buck.
Well, I hope you can illuminate some of what happened last night, to be honest, above all else, because it was horrific for 45 minutes. It was pretty good for 40 minutes. I enjoyed the first kind of 40 minutes. I actually thought we were witnessing like the second coming after the first 40 minutes. It was great. But yeah, we're going to get into everything that happened, and we'll get plenty of the people's thoughts in the chat box as well. I'm well aware it's an early morning show, but it's the only time we can do it, to be honest, on these Wednesdays. So just give me your raw reaction to the result.
I said to you just before we went to broadcast, like I can often come with different perspectives than what might be expected, considering I've previously been on here somewhat. I don't think I am, but some people, label me as bashing Arteta. I've certainly said in the past I think it was probably the right call to get rid of him. I haven't changed that perspective, like in terms of it was never a hate thing with Arteta, but at some point, when you had your worst start to 50 years and your manager's coming out saying things like, we crossed the ball so much that we deserve to win, that's enough. Like you're due a sacking. The fact we haven't is fine. Like, that was up to the ball. And I think it has bared fruit in the fact that we've had an upsurge in form. But I have been, loath to throw my full weight behind the support for Arteta for the same reasons that other people didn't want to get him sacked in the first place. Like, you've got to show me more, and a few swallows doth not make a summer, so we've got a situation where we were in an upsurge in form, but I think that largely came down to the fact that Arteta changed tack and started playing the youngsters, putting faith in the youngsters. And they, gave that youthful exuberance, which provided a bounce in form and points. The reason why I'm positive, coming back to yesterday, was that what I wanted to see more than anything else was a coherent strategy when it came to our attack. Because that's not what we've seen. Even in the early games where we were turning, I mean, don't get me wrong, like Chelsea, we look good. But then, like, the next game, it's a little bit slower. And you're like, have we actually learned any lessons? Or are these just like, temporary fixes that are not being formulated into a coherent strategy? And this now, after the last few games, I would say, including United, because United's a different kettle of fish as well. They're obviously further up the league. They're going to be challenging for the league by the looks of it. And we looked every bit as good as them. But it looks like we do have an identity going forward now. And that is, we've got enough of a sample size now to know that Emile Smith-Rowe is fitting into our attacking lineup. He's not going to get dropped because Odegaard's in or whatever. He is part of it. He's that link-up player. Saka is our best attacking player, hands down. It's not Aubameyang. It's not anyway. It is Saka. He is the man who gets things moving. And obviously, one thing I will, show a bit of sympathy for Arteta for in those, that lull that we were going through for quite some time was the fact we didn't have Thomas Partey, who is an absolute different gravy. And every time he steps on the field at the moment, he looks like the best player on the pitch. So, and anyone who had a potentially oversimplistic view of his game previously, like he was just going to be some destroyer, has firmly had their minds changed, because this guy has a feather touch. He's got vision. He sets the tempo of our team, and he always plays on the front foot. So suddenly, Wolves is a tough game that we have struggled with in the past. We've been beaten up there a few times at Molineux. But that first half, we blew them away. We absolutely blew them away. And so, and let's be honest, we were 1-0 up heading into the David Luiz fun time Frankie moment, but we were miles better than 1-0 up in terms of our domination. And for me, I think we have to start doing away with what or lowering our expectations of what this league season might provide us. But for the overall objective improvement of our team's tactical approach, I think there are a lot of positives to take away at this stage. And that's me saying it after a loss with 9 men.
Sticking with the first half, I get what you're saying. There was a clear strategy. We used the wide areas really well. I like Pepe on this left-hand side. For someone that we seemingly thought was bereft of a right foot, he seemingly does have a pretty decent one at times. It's a great goal that he scored. He scored a similar kind of goal in the Europa League as well, if I remember, coming in from the left and hitting with his right across the goal. So he clearly can strike a ball with his right foot. But before we scored the goal, Saka had a chance to hit the bar. There was a couple of other chances that we could have been, as you say, 4-0 up. Now, if I don't mean to be critical, and if we come away from this game winning 3-0 and the red cards don't happen, we probably wouldn't even bring this up. But they were big chances. Saka hitting the post when it was a very good opportunity. I thought he sliced across the ball a little bit too much, which caused it to obviously outswing and then go against the post. I'm probably being too harsh, but I feel if that's Lacazette taking that chance, a lot of people would have got on his back for missing it as well. So I want to be fair and consistent across the board. Do you think that it could have been, obviously it's easy to say it would have been a completely different game had we had taken those chances, but do you think that it is worthy of criticism to say that we should have taken those chances, Saka, and I think Lacazette had one as well that he could have put in the net as well?
I think it's a little harsh, to be honest. Like, if you look at the opportunity that Saka did, it's a wonderful ball from Partey. So again, the positives there are that we've now got someone looking for those final balls with the vision and the ability to actually make them. But his first issue is to get the man off him who's trying to kind of tug him back. He blasts him with pace, but then he has to set himself, and it's a much trickier, because he's got to actually get the ball across the keeper into that far corner. It's the only place he's going to do it, but he's also got to hit it with enough power to beat the keeper anyway, so the keeper doesn't just walk across and just pick it out of the air. So I think he's done quite well there, and I think there are a number of players in Arsenal's team. I know, we shouldn't be setting low benchmarks, but the fact is that that's a difficult technique, and a lot of our players would have skied that into row Z. So, for me, Saka's class, and the reality is how he took his second opportunity. Like, sometimes you like it if people score, and if Saka had ran through one-on-one, square with a keeper, could have sat him down, anything, I would have said, no, you put more pressure on yourself. You've got to finish. But from that angle, like, it's a good effort. You know what I mean? Sometimes you can have what is, called a good miss. A miss where you've done the right things. It's a bit unlucky, and in the next game you hit it the same way it's going in. If you ballooned it over the bar, it's like, what are you doing? That's a shocker. Straighten yourself out right now, and we're not having any more of them. And even then, like, there is another thing about hitting the post. Like, if you do hit the post, the reason why it's better than just ballooning it, it can often come back into play. Someone else is there. In another instance, we get another big opportunity to score a goal. But obviously, we are millimetres away from getting another goal, which was later ruled out, which was a very, very smart finish by Saka, and showed, for me, he now looks like he wants to take the responsibility on of being the difference maker, not just playing well and being solid and, showing that he's not going to be bullied at this level. It's like, no, he looks like he's got a bigger hunger and appetite to actually, affect the game with the big statistic, goals, assists. So I wouldn't be on Saka. I think he's clearly, for me, our best attacking player. Yeah. I think he is the prime mover within our team. Like, we respond to him within attack. I think Partey is the overall beat of the drum, but in attack, they move around Saka so often now. You watch this, right? Watch how many times people pick Saka out, even when you're building it up to wait for that bit of ingenuity, that bit of genius to get us going. They look to him as a 19-year-old like he is the main man, and that's refreshing because he looks like he's not shirking that responsibility. He's ready to roll. So, yeah, I wouldn't bash him too much. And I think if we didn't get that put down to 10 men, he would have scored. We would have won. That's as simple as that.
No, I agree with you. I just thought it's obviously important to put the other point of view across from the other side of things. There was another chance. Obviously, he's still very young. That chance you said, I agree that it was a very difficult one to take. There was a ball that was played across the box by Emile Smith-Rowe on his left foot that went straight across the keeper. And Saka was kind of in this area on the edge of the 6-yard box. And I feel like if he was a bit mature, a few more years on his belt, he would have gambled into and run into that space to jump on it. And that will come with time, and he will improve to take those chances. Before we get onto the main talking point, which everyone knows is coming, brief words on Pepe. We mentioned him briefly at the start. He did get the goal on his right foot. That left-hand side just seems to suit him so much better, doesn't it?
It does. And just to come back to your point there about the Saka thing where Emile Smith-Rowe, that is I 100% think he deserves criticism for that. That was actually a bit lazy from him. It was like you could see, and Smith-Rowe did exactly the right thing there. And that's the one part where I would definitely say, Saka has some questions to answer, but in the grand scheme of things, he's playing really well, but he got a bit lazy in that moment. So to talk about Pepe, and it shouldn't be a moot point because he's a much maligned player. Let's get realistic about it. I think he's become one of the easiest boo boys at Arsenal, not least because of his, let's just say, quite flamboyant price tag. When you get bought for 72 million, you expect it to be, a cut above the rest. But the fact is when people were ready to cut adrift of it, and I hold my hands up, we both have gone after Pepe. He looked like a busted flush, one thing I've always done is drawn separation between him and Willian. I've always said, hey, listen, Pepe actually, has a spine in the sense that he will not completely hide in games. He's trying stuff. He's just not got the right mentality at times, and that's why he's easily nudged out of games, whereas Willian is a disaster. But, no other way to say it. But what we're seeing now is, and this is why I talk about Saka and Smith-Rowe, because I think what they do is they've added a kind of lightning rod in the team when it comes to our attack by setting the tempo in terms of effort, in terms of ability, in terms of hunger. And the fact is that I believe, and I was saying this, I think, on my channel as well, there are some people like in life, you look at them and they're called empaths. And it's like they can feel what other people, they have really heightened senses of what other people are feeling, and they react to them in that respect. And I think Pepe is someone who is not a trendsetter himself. He feeds off other people's energy. So exactly. He's a background player in many settings, but can do great things because he has the ability to. But he has gone from taking his lead off of players like Willian, who, let's not forget, are his senior. Pepe's not the oldest geezer in the world. You know what I mean? Like mid-20s. In a new league. So he's going to be looking to take his lead off of other people like Aubameyang, who looks completely out of sorts, or Willian, who's an experienced player. The fact is, if that's your benchmark, you're going to be shit, quite frankly. You know what I mean? So now he seems like he's taking his lead off of Saka and Smith-Rowe, and he's playing with energy, he's playing with hunger. He's looking at them and going, well, hold up, they play with no fear. They're getting stuck into people and they're taking responsibility for being the difference in the game. And I thought, this is second or third game on the bounce now where he's looked like he's terrifying the opposition, left back or right back. I think when he was playing up against Luke Shaw, was it? At United, just absolutely terrorised, constantly calling for help, you know what I mean? So it's a really, really positive sign that Pepe has looked like he's gained that confidence and he's on the march. And ultimately, whilst we all probably a couple of weeks ago thought there's not going to be any place for him, now it looks like he absolutely has to start. Even though, like, I'm a massive Martinelli fan, for instance, Pepe is now starting to make the difference, so you have to go with him.
100%. And Martinelli himself is an energetic player. He's someone that you could bring off the bench and make a big impact. And he's still very young. Like, people get very obsessed about kind of you need to get these guys in the team. But being an understudy to Pepe and obviously Saka on the other side and having these players. I mean, you look at Manchester City, you don't see Sterling, Mahrez, Foden, Torres, all these people moan about not getting enough chances because they know that as a collective, they're going to be pushing towards things. And that's what Arsenal need to be doing, is filling out the side with quality players. That means we can rotate. We don't have to play the same team week in, week out. And there'll be games that Martinelli suits much better than what Pepe does. Martinelli will press more than what Pepe will. Although, to be fair to Pepe in the last couple of games, he has defensively worked very hard. Let's move on to the big talking point of the first half, which of course was the David Luiz situation. Now, I was on with Hugh Izzy yesterday for his watch along, and I very much try and go into those being when like a decision is made, I try and view it from why has that decision been made? Why have the officials made the decision that they have? Very weirdly, and as is the way sometimes, in the later game against Manchester United and Southampton, a very similar foul came up again between Martial and Bednarek. Bednarek tries to get out of the way of Martial, clips him, he goes down. There's more contact in that scenario, but it's very similar. It's not cynical. He's not gone for the ball. And it's this not going for the ball thing which has constituted the decision to give both Luiz and Bednarek a red card. Now, before we get onto the actual decision to give him a red card, what did you make of the contact? Because that seems to be something that's, I mean, there's videos, there's images, there's pictures. Do you think there was enough contact which constituted what followed afterwards?
They're two separate questions, I think. In terms of, do I think it was a foul ultimately? Yeah, it was a foul. Okay. Because when the player runs past you, you can't, it is incumbent on the backtracking defender to not make contact unless, you're going for the ball and you can get the ball. If you, through being clumsy, run across the player's legs and he trips over and there's no reason why he would have gone down there, I mean, he's through on goal, then it's a foul. In terms of justifying the decision, again, it's a separate point. Do I think a red card and a penalty is appropriate in that instance? Absolutely not. My initial thing was, well, what's happened to double jeopardy? Has that just disappeared now? I thought that was a thing where it's like, if you gave away a penalty, I don't think there's a fan base that is more kind of aggrieved by such things than the Arsenal one. In terms of, I think back to the days of Jens Lehmann, running out, and I'm thinking, in the big Champions League final, and if double jeopardy was established as a rule in that stage, it would have been like, look, mate, just wait till he's in the penalty area, foul him if you need, and then you won't get sent off. But what we got done with that red card, and it wasn't actually a penalty of Barcelona, it was a free kick, but they went on to hurt us. That red card was pretty influential, to say the least. So I thought that football, the governing bodies had kind of got their head around the fact that it's too much to give. If you're going to give a penalty, it's too much to give a team a red card outside of, because this is the thing. If David Luiz had jumped in the air 2-footed and gone through the back of his legs, looking like he's trying to break him, get off the field. No one's arguing. Disgusting challenge.
Well, weirdly though, they're saying, had that have taken place, what you just described, because effectively he would have made a challenge which would have gone for the ball, but he would have gone back through the back of the player. That itself would have been a yellow. But just because of him going across the back of him, they clip, no matter how much contact there was, minimal or whatever, there is a touch. And in the moment where two people are running at full speed, obviously the impact of that is multiplied or whatever to cause them to fall to the ground. A lot of people in the chat box are saying that he's diving. I think there is enough contact. He might still dive, but football players in general, when they feel contact in the box, they go down. They want to force the referee to make a decision, because the worst thing that can happen to a striker who feels contact when they go down is a yellow card. That's the worst thing that can happen to them. That is the worst case scenario. So if you feel contact in the box and you're a coach telling this player, as a coach, would say, if you feel contact in the box, go down. The worst thing that's going to happen to you is get a yellow card. I'm not a big fan. I'd hate diving. I hate it absolutely. But if you're a coach and you're in the business of football where points are everything and wins are everything, you are going to tell your player, if you feel contact, go down. all the time.
So there's a couple of points there. The first thing, what I was talking about, and I know the point you're making about if he had gone for the ball, it would have been a yellow. I'm talking about if it was, gross,
Cynical.
like really violent misconduct or whatever, then he'd have to go anyway if it's a dangerous act. But absolutely, we're left in a situation where if it's not a dangerous act and it's, an attempt for the ball, which can be a large, variety of instances where you could go, I went for the ball, ref, then it would have been a yellow card. Now, what you're talking about, coaches telling their players to go down if they feel contact. Well, what you also have to say now is after yesterday's events, you have to, as a coach, say, if the player goes through, jump at the ball, dive for the ball. Because what we can't have in that instance is just tracking back and your knee hitting someone's heel and then you're getting sent off. It makes no sense. You're actually encouraging players to dive into challenges now because they might give away a penalty anyway. So basically, if someone's running through on goal and the guy was clear of the defender, then you're basically saying back off and let the guy just have a clear shot. Like, don't get anywhere near him. There can be no accidental contact, or just jump into a challenge even if you don't think you're going to make it, because he's either going to score or you're going to give away a penalty. But either way, the biggest issue would be getting a red card, particularly in the first half. You know what I mean? And so that little bit of internal player management of knowing that situational football. I listen to a lot of NFL stuff, and they use that term for NFL situational football. But this is situational football in terms of Premier League football. Knowing where you are in the game, because if that was in the 90th minute and we're 1-0 up, then I don't want to see that geezer get into the box. Take him out, smash him in the air, and then take your red card. See you later. We're going to win the game. On the turn of half time, you can't be running back, getting accidental red cards and giving away a penalty. It's a lack of awareness of not only where he is on the pitch, but where we are in the game. And that kind of sums up the bad side of David Luiz, I think.
I think you're spot on with that. And I think that a lot of people have forgiven David Luiz because they feel for whatever reason it was a dive or it wasn't a foul. That, in my mind, is secondary. Like, he should not be in the situation where if Willian Jose has run through on goal, the ball is clear of him, don't touch him. You're not getting the ball in that situation. Don't go near it. Let him take the shot. He might miss. It might go in. But you're going to go into half-time with 11 against 11, with the other team still, yes, they'll be buoyed by the fact they've scored, but nowhere near as much buoyed by the fact they've got an equaliser and they've now got a man advantage. And the fact that David Luiz has got previous as well, which I know some people have said is unfair to bring up, but I'm sorry, this kid has got 3 red cards in something like 60-something games. That's a red card every 20-something games. Like, it's ridiculous how frequent these happen. And they're all the same. The red cards are very similar. You look at the one against Chelsea, I think, who was it? Tammy Abraham that was through, took him out, clear on goal. It was a red card again. I don't think he made a play for the ball, to be honest, in that incident either. He just took him out. And it's just this classic thing that it's unfair to say, and the referee should not act in that way. They should not take previous into account. And if it was a different player, maybe they would have done differently. But because it was David Luiz, they did. But he should be mature enough to know at the experience that he has and the previous that he's got, just don't go near him. And it's not a case of he was trying to get out of the way either. I don't buy that.
The thing is, again, to offer a bit of balance on my kind of positive appraisal of Arteta's recent run with the Arsenal team, this is, for me, a Mikel Arteta problem. You pick him. This is a situation where the guy is 35 years old or whatever, right? Yeah. He is cooked. If you're talking about you baking a cake, it's done. He's out the oven. There's no more ingredients to add. He is going to give you this because he's always giving you this. So if you're going to tough games away from home and you think it might be, a tense affair where, a 1 or 2 goals in it and you really can't deal with the mistakes, then you can't play him. You can't play him in these games. It's not like we had injuries so no one else could play, because Gabriel come off the bench and had to play the second half anyway. Bob Holding's now our starting centre half anyway. We know that. But, to a certain extent, when David Luiz does these things, there's no surprise. There's no surprise that he does it. It's just when because once he comes back into the team, this will happen again, probably before the end of the season if he starts playing again, because that is what he does. He's not. This isn't an anomaly. This is David Luiz. That's what he does. He's giving you what he's always give you, and ultimately there are some real positives out of David Luiz's game. You know, his distribution is largely excellent for a centre half. You know, he does add an intensity to our defence, where sometimes some of the younger players have not always matched it. I think Rob Holding is delivering that himself these days. So there are some upsides to him, but you can't really just poo-poo these instances with him, because this is what you get with him. There are no surprises there. So, you know, and also the other geezer who gets a red card as well, Leno, that's the kind of stuff that you get off him as well. You know, if it was someone like Saka, you know, doing a 2-footed, you know, knee-high challenge, I'll be like, what are you doing, mate? You don't do that, and don't start adding this nonsense to your game. But when you've got seasoned professionals, experienced players who have done this all their career, we can't sit there and act too stunned when they just do it again, because, you know, it's in their nature.
I agree that it is in David Luiz's nature to do this, hence me bringing it up. And I agree that what you get from selecting him is always there is going to be the risk of that happening. However, I think it's harsh on Arteta to say that you know what you're going to get. And so if you pick him, it's your fault, because Arsenal had the second best defensive record in the league before this. Yeah. And largely David Luiz has contributed towards that good record. He was really good against Man United. He was good against Southampton. Gabriel's coming back from coronavirus and all of that, and he wasn't. And I didn't think he looked good when he came on either against Wolves. To be honest, I didn't think he looked very good at all, and has struggled since coming back from that. It was, in my mind, the right decision to pick David Luiz from the start. So I understand what you're saying in regards to, you know what you're going to get, and it is always a risk. But this, for me, is the argument. It's not the argument for this game. The argument for this game is to say that he was the informed defender, so you play him in this game. But the argument to give him an extension for another season through these results is where I go, no, because then you are risking it. And that is on the club, because then you are keeping a player at the club that will make these errors. And that's why you cannot. I don't care the impact he has in the dressing room. I don't care what he does for the younger players, because ultimately what matters most at the club is the results on the pitch. And if he is having a detrimental effect on the pitch over a serious amount of time, that's not something you can legislate for, to give him another £100,000 per week contract for another year. So I don't agree with you about the selection being on Arteta for that. I think that's harsh.
Well, just on that, Tom, all I'm saying is that our points are not mutually exclusive. I'm not saying I think he does have to bear responsibility. I'm not even saying I wouldn't have played him myself. You know, the situation calls for you to play David Luiz at times. We've got Gabriel coming back from injury. If you know, David Luiz, like you say, has been in decent form in recent games. But what I'm saying is, you know, at this stage, there can't be any shocks here. You know that is inbuilt in David Luiz's game. You can never, ever properly trust him. Even if he's had 3 good games, that 4th game, you can't be like, oh, he's playing well. No, he might do that again. So I don't know. Arteta has to weigh up the risk between what's a better solution. A risky David Luiz who could give away a red card. No surprises here. Most red cards in the Premier League since he signed for Arsenal than any other player. That is the risk we have. Or Gabriel, who ultimately will be our starting centre-half when he's fit. Is he fit enough coming back from his injury? I don't know. Like, he made the decision, but what I'm saying is that's a decision that he makes. And I completely agree with the fact that, you know, whether or not we gave him a contract extension becomes even the more glaring point of discussion. But I'm just saying, when you pick him as well, this is what he does. Like, we can't sit and go, oh no, David Luiz. This is what he does. And if he gets picked again, he will do this again. Not every game, but every 4 games, every 5 games, expect a red card, expect an own goal, expect penalties to get given away. That's what he does. It's simple.
Okay. The next red card, we did touch on it briefly a second ago, but the next red card is honestly, and I said last night, and people obviously who watch the channel know that I don't really get too hyperbolic with things, but I don't think Leno is a stupid person. But the action in which he showed us last night is genuinely, for me, one of the stupidest things I have ever seen a footballer do on a football pitch. Tell me if I'm overreacting with this, because I can't be light on that decision when in the situation of the game as well.
Well, of course it's stupid. You know, I remember one of the first times I saw an instance of this was Shaka Hislop at West Ham, and he did exactly the same thing. And I remember it so vividly because what he did was, let's call it the Shaka, because quite frankly, Leno did it yesterday as well. Shaka Hislop ran out, thought he got his measurements right, didn't, came out, touched the ball, realised he was out of the box, dropped the ball and just walked straight off the pitch because he knew what was coming. And Leno didn't do much. They're like, yeah, we're checking VAR. And Leno's like, I'm having a bath, mate, whatever. Yeah. It's going to happen. And I'll shout at someone on the way off. But no, look, it is ridiculous. But this is where I actually have a little bit of sympathy for Leno. Not really for his kind of actions and how they influence the game, but the fact that this was an instinctive move that he made, not necessarily thinking. It's just stupid. It's the kind of thing where, you know, you might swing at the ball like a defender, miss it, and then because the player's there, you just grab out. Like you're not even thinking like, oh, how will this affect? So at that point, you know, it was a difficult situation for us anyway to get anything out of the game. But obviously, once Leno goes, it's all over. But the issue is, and let's not be afraid for that discussion, because I've brought this up before. You've got Martinez playing at Villa, looking like a Rolls Royce. He was our best keeper when he was playing for us. He was our best keeper in the summer. We had two good keepers, and we chose to keep one of them. And I've called this out before and said it was a dreadful decision because ultimately Martinez is better than Leno. I think it's obvious that that's the case. And the way he added an assuredness to our defence last year, I think that alone should have meant that we should have basically tried to move Leno on for money. I'm sure. How much do we get for Martinez? Yeah, I mean, surely one of the German clubs will be picking up Leno for something like that. It's not that much for a keeper. And ultimately, you have the one who, you know, and I appreciate Martinez's career before last year was lamentable, but players turn corners, and it looks like he genuinely has turned a corner. He's looking like a top Premier League keeper, whereas Leno is not a bad keeper, you know, and yesterday doesn't make him a bad keeper, but he has these blips as well in his game, which I don't think would stop us from, say, getting top four. I think he's good enough to be a top four keeper, but in terms of like your Allisons, your Edisons and stuff, keepers that can make the difference and are much more consistently solid, I don't think Leno's in that category. So if we were to push on for trying to challenge for the league, I don't think Leno would be the guy between the sticks for that adventure.
I think Leno is one of the top 5 goalkeepers in the league. That's my view. I genuinely think that the mistake yesterday will obviously bring up all of these kind of views. And I know that you are certainly not alone in the view of thinking we should have kept Martinez. And even myself thought it would have been a better idea if it was a straight decision between the two. I would have kept Martinez. But logistically, looking at what happened in the summer, I look at the options that are available, the fact in a financial... I mean, I'm quite aware of how poor things were before the Cronkies came in with the backing for the Partey money. And there was a stage in the summer where, if the information that I was given was basically true, is that Willian coming in on a free was pretty much all we were going to be able to do at one point. And the money that we got for Martinez helped us go for Gabriel. And we had to move on one of those two keepers. Martinez himself said that he was you either make me number one or I'm going. That was basically the ultimatum that he gave us. And no one came in for Leno. And even if anyone did, no one was going to come in for Leno for the fee, considering we paid 25 million for him, that would have convinced Arsenal to sell Leno. And I understand why we sold Martinez. And I think since then, Martinez has also made mistakes for Villa. Like, from watching the Villa games, he parries the ball out into dangerous areas all the time. And Villa have got away with a lot of opportunities where Martinez has really put them in trouble. And that's being critical. He has still been very, very good. In fact, I think they're pretty much on par with each other for the season. And it'll be interesting to see, obviously, when we play Villa, how Martinez does against us if we actually try and test him this time around, unlike we did at the Emirates. But I genuinely believe that Leno is one of the top 5 keepers in the league. I think his form this season has been excellent. The penalty save against Chelsea pretty much is one of the instances that incumbents that area of his game. His shot stopping is excellent. Some of the saves that he's made is excellent. The save he made against Manchester United towards the end of the first half with Fred with that shot. These instances, I just can't see the other side because of the amount of good things that he brings.
But I mean, shout out to everyone in the chats as well. Someone's saying, is Johnny drunk? No, I'm not. I wish I was. Sobered up a little.
Respect people's opinions, chat box.
Yeah, the Leno talk is obviously like, the absolute lightning rod for fierce debate in your Discord. I love that. And obviously, shout out to Owen, who does see it the way I do. But let's be clear. I'm not saying Leno is a shocking keeper. You've almost defended that point, saying that you think he's a top 5 keeper in the league. I agree with you. I didn't say he wasn't. I'm saying more that I think he is elite, top level, league challenging keeper? No, I don't. I don't think he is. And I don't think he's a million miles away from it. And I think we have one of the best keepers in the league. I do believe that. But I think, for me, I believe Martinez was a step up on Leno. Okay. I thought he was more solid between the sticks. He claims balls better rather than punching all the time. I thought when you're a striker bearing down on goal, Martinez developed that Schmeichel factor where he was so big coming out that it quickly became, if you haven't lined up what you're doing straight away, what you're shooting at is actually like a little bucket in the goal because he's smothered the goal. I don't think Leno comes out as well as Martinez. And whilst Leno's good with his feet, there's every now and then he'll just do something which is just completely bizarre, and they'll pass it to one of their strikers or something. He's really into a really, really dangerous situation. And whereas Martinez, I think, tends to know his limitations more and will play for safety sometimes more with his feet, whilst he can also play as well. And that's why I think we look more solid with him. But yeah, look, I'm not saying that. And look, someone else in the comments was saying, look, Leno's had a bad game. Can we just say that rather than bring up Martinez? I get that. Like, this isn't about, get our pitchforks out and drive Leno out of the club. That's not even what I'm saying. But you have to look at it. These things are not in isolation. We are 6 months removed from we made a choice on our goalkeepers. And I think it's apt that we do a little bit of a self-audit on whether or not we made the right decisions. Because, let's forget about this Runnison kid who looks like a work experience guy, being given a chance to play for Arsenal. He's not the answer. Matt Ryan isn't the answer on a 6 month. We're going to have to make a more, prolonged decision around our goalkeeping situation, and soon, because by the summer, we're going to have to make a call about whether we are looking for someone to just add a bit of competition to Leno, or maybe it's a case of we're looking for someone who could push on to be the new number one. And I'm just saying you have to look at it in the kind of objectively, look at who we had, what choice we made, and where that sinks. And I don't think Leno is like some, disaster compared to Martinez. That is absolutely not what I'm saying. But I think I would prefer to have Martinez at this stage just because I think he's more solid. And this, unfortunately, is an example of one of the things that I don't think Martinez would have done.
I think that, obviously, it is not like you come onto the channel every single week and say this debate, which is, I think, what some people are missing. Obviously, this debate is something a lot of Arsenal fans who watch the channel are going to be so engrossed in social media, so engrossed in seeing opinions day after day after day. And I'm sure some people, you get sick of hearing this debate. And to be honest, it's something that we've not really discussed too much on the channel for quite a while. And I think that maybe some people are associating it with it being brought back up again. But it's a different. Johnny's a different person that's bringing up this debate. It's not like Johnny's been every week bringing up this debate. So I would just bear that in mind. If you disagree with it, feel free to disagree with it, but just put an explanation into the chat rather than claiming that Johnny's drunk. Anyway, we got one more kind of thing to talk about before we go into your user questions. So if you do have any questions in the chat, do not ask about how many beers Johnny's had this morning before 10 a.m. It'd be great. If you do have any questions for myself or Johnny, please throw them into the chat using the capital Q, and we will make sure we try and get through as many of them as we feasibly can. I suppose the best way to think about this is where does this leave us, Johnny? Like, how does this affect us going into the next game, which is, I believe, Aston Villa on Saturday, which is annoying because they moved it to an early kickoff, which means I'm working through the game, but we'll see how it goes. How do we go into that game? We've got a decision to make with goalkeeper. We've got a decision to make with the defence because we've got 2 suspensions. I believe they're only for 1 game, not for 3, is what I'm aware of, I think. So there's been a lot of debate about it. It's not been cleared up. I'm pretty sure it's just the 1 game at the moment.
Yeah.
How does Arteta kind of re-galvanise this squad? Because I think he has to focus on the first 40 minutes. Say, look, guys, we would have smashed this game 11 against 11. You need to go into that game and basically do what you did, and hope that with the absence of Leno and Luiz, Gabriel will come in, or if Marie is fit, I'd rather, to be honest, if Marie is fit, for him to come in over the way Gabriel's been playing. And if Ryan isn't fit, I think there is a genuine discussion about whether you bring in a Conquo or Hein, genuinely thinking about one of the youth keepers over Runnison, because I used the word to describe him yesterday as if we've got him out of a Kinder egg, because he feels that's dreadful. Like, he's, for me, that's dreadful that I would be. So talk me through all of those kind of decision processes.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, I'm in a similar boat to where you've just kind of laid it out, in the sense that, you know, we're playing up against Villa. They are game opposition. They have an absolutely excellent goalkeeper. And
greatest keeper the world has ever seen.
So, you know, no, obviously they are game opposition. And the fact is that even if we were at full strength, you know, Villa would be a challenge for us. And obviously they've done us once this year already. But I think, you know, as I started this show with, I'm quite positive, because I think the exact thing that you said in terms of, you know, how to G up the players, we blew Wolves away. You know, we've got to get more ruthless in our finishing. And what the key is with that, you know, encouraging being ruthless is, look, the reason why you have to be ruthless is not because we think that Wolves are going to get back into the game when we're playing like this, because we were clearly better than them. But you never know when a player might get sent off, or your keeper gets sent off, or we're giving away penalties. And if you're in that much of a dominant position, then we absolutely have to take those opportunities and see the team away. So I think that we will be able to hurt Villa. I really do. I think we need to be starting from an attacking point of view with the same lineup. Pepe absolutely has to continue, and I think he'll damage the Villa fullbacks, because what he's shown in recent games is a real willingness. One of the things I said about with Pepe is what he's shown lately is a real desire to play on the shoulder of defenders and get that out ball, and he is pacey. Like, you know, at one point he started trying to change the game. I don't know whether that was his actual default game, but trying to pick up the ball and just dribble past everyone all the time, which he still does sometimes. But now there's much more of a willingness to run in behind. And that kind of vertical threat in terms of pitch layout is what is scaring defenders. Like, I can't believe how much Wolves were trying to play a high line, and they were just getting blitzed every time by Saka and Pepe. And I think if Villa try that nonsense, we'll cause real damage with them, you know. In terms of the issues I think we have to focus on, you pulled it out perfectly. You know, the fact is this goalkeeper's not fit for purpose. And if Matt Ryan goes, you know, I don't even know what the injury is with Matt Ryan, but if it's something like I've pulled my back and I'm still in a bit of pain, I'm saying, listen, mate, we've got some injections for you. Get on. You know what I mean? Like, we didn't, you know what I mean? It's tough now, but have you seen the guy you're up against? You know, just basically a competent goalkeeper at any stage now is better than what Runnison is. That looks like a really, really strange, bad decision, the Runnison one, to even bring him in, because he looks like, he didn't just look like he's young and lacks experience, so he's made a mistake. He looks like he's young, lacks experience, and might not be good enough when he gets older. You know what I mean? It's not like he's showing loads of promise. He just might not be good enough flat out. So we will have to have a serious look at that situation. And I don't know whether that is promoting a youth team keeper, because we're asking for a lot for a guy who's never seen first team Premier League football to just come in and play. Villa are no mugs, and they will, the likes of Grealish and that will create chances. Ollie Watkins looks like he's, back and interested as well. So I think they will. The reality is, I think we're going to have to score goals to win this game. Like, I mean, obviously you have to score to win a game. But,
I was like, yes, Johnny, we will.
but like I say, goals plural. Like, I don't think 1-0 is going to get it done for us, because I think we're going to concede. So I think we're going to have to be looking to get, 2 or 3 goals, maybe even more. It might have to be a shootout for us to win this one. But if we start the way we did against Wolves, I think we will absolutely cut through Villa at times, and we will have to approach it where, with the kind of ruthlessness that you talked about at the start, where that Saka opportunity, for instance, will have to go in against Villa, because we won't have loads and loads of chances over and over again. We're going to have to take our chances when we get them, and then hopefully just try and protect whoever's between the sticks as much as possible.
Yeah. I don't know what we're going to do if Matt Ryan is out, because Runnison kicked the ball off for a corner yesterday when we were 2-1 down. So anything's possible with that, kids. Anyway, let's go into user questions. As if you do have one, please be writing them into the chat box. There's a really, really good question from Owen, who says, Johnny, who's better, Leno or Emi Martinez? I think you'd love to get your thoughts on that. Daniel Robert, though, says, a genuine question on the goalkeeper situation. Why does Leno always parry a shot? He needs to put it out for a corner, not in front of him, with the strikers able to get there before a defender. Yeah, I mean, that is kind of one of the issues I have with Leno, as opposed to, to go into the Martinez thing. I think Martinez was much better at doing that. The only thing I would say with Leno, he did that yesterday. He parried it into the oncoming attacker. But I don't blame him for that one, because it was actually a ball that moved horizontally and skidded. Like, it doesn't matter who you are. Sometimes you're going to face shots and stuff that are just, you can't hold on to them. They're all over the gaff. And ultimately, the main thing is don't let it in, and you're also, if the defence is willing to let those players have those free shots where you can, it can move that much and be so tricky for a keeper, then they better back you up in terms of clearing any spillages, following in those shots, because the defence has to take responsibility as well. But ultimately, that is one of my issues with Leno. Not just like kind of parrying shots, but crosses, punching things, flapping at things rather than being commanding. And I think that adds an assuredness to what we are doing at the back that we are missing a little. That's all I'd say. Vinny Eagle says, Tom, without access to a hairdresser during lockdown, have you considered going for Johnny's look? And the answer to that is no, because not that it isn't wonderful, Johnny.
Thank you.
I think we're going to get the missus some clippers, and she's just going to give it her best shot. I think it's the best thing at the moment is what's going to happen, which is wonderful. But yeah, no, I have not considered that at all. I mean, that's why I'm wearing hats in almost every single show, because what is under here is ridiculous.
The sun in your eyes, is it, Tom, in February in your house? That's not what the cap's for. Yeah. I don't know if your missus is like my mum when she used to do my hair, but she used to... Well, no, not so much bowl. I don't think it would even work with this kind of vibe. But my mum used to give us the mirage of a choice of haircut. So it's like, kind of go a bit short and, have a bit of a fade on top. And she's like, yeah, absolutely. About 3 strokes in, she's like, you're having a skinhead. She's messing it up. So, watch out for them ones.
Yeah. We'll see what happens. I can always just wear a hat again. Like, it's no problem. If it doesn't go well, the hat is always an option. Ingard says, "Do you believe in Arteta to get rid of Bellerin, Xhaka, and Willian in the summer?"
No, I don't necessarily think he'll want to get rid of all of them. Like Bellerin, look, Bellerin is not.
I don't think he was great yesterday.
No, but you can have a look as an Arsenal fan at our squad and say, for me, I'd let Bellerin go, I'd bring in this person or whatever. But you can't look at our squad and think Bellerin is some glaring issue. He's been a solid, not even solid, good player for Arsenal and he's our longest serving player. Like, if Arteta chooses to get rid of him, I hope he's got some good ideas around it, not least letting Maitland-Niles go out on loan when he looks like an, more than capable replacement in that position. Like, if you get rid of Bellerin, you better damn well have a plan. So for me, I don't think whether or not Bellerin's the guy for the next 5 years at Arsenal, I'm not committing myself to it yet, but I think he could be. I think he's a pretty, a game player, but ultimately, he is not the kind of problem that we could be mentioning the other two players in the same breath as. And I also think, look, there's a scale there. Bellerin, not an Arsenal problem. Xhaka, sometimes an Arsenal problem. The fact is that he has played well lately. Like, it is the thing about Xhaka. I used to bash Xhaka and Mustafi all the time, but I was always very clear. They are not the same caliber of player. Xhaka is actually a decent player, but like Luiz, he has brain farts. It's built into him. That Xhaka has been playing well for the last few games. In 2 games' time, he'll have a brain fart and he'll get sent off. It's just what's going to happen with Xhaka. Or he'll not think and he'll just pass backwards. He has started to slow down the regularity of these mistakes, which is a positive sign. So for me, I think I would like to see us long-term move away from Granit Xhaka. I really would. I think, a player in the mould of Partey that adds that energy and that athleticism as well as good technique would mean that we start becoming a very scary opposition when it comes to midfield. Willian, disaster. Absolute Arsenal problem. Gets the guy out. Do I trust Arteta to do it? I don't know, because I would say absolutely no, but what I've seen in terms of our ruthlessness by player departures over the last 2 weeks, I've been encouraged. And I do think that Arteta, what I was worried about him before was that it's like, do you not have eyes? Can you not see what everyone else is seeing? But the fact he's shuffled Mustafi out the back door, ripping up contracts, it's like, oh, maybe you are starting to work it out. And you can't be blind to the fact that Willian is an absence of matter on the field. He's just, there's nothing there. He's goo. So I hope that Arteta has seen and analysed Willian's abject performances and realises there's no future for him.
I think I agree with you 100% on Willian, and he's a player that Arsenal need to move on as quickly as possible. It's just compared to Özil, Mustafi, Socrates, it's a lot more difficult for it to happen. Because even if we do rip up the contract, that costs Arsenal effectively all of the money that we saved with those players that we have saved wages on between now and the end of this season. It would be a horrifically kind of negative patch on the financial thing. And I'm not saying that that's worth it. And I'm saying that if any way we can move him on is the right decision. But thinking of it from a logistical standpoint and how the club could manage it, it would be really tricky to move him on. I think the only chance we've got is if someone in the US, in China, in Saudi Arabia, these countries which are willing to take some of these kind of twilight year players away and are willing to pay them the wages that it would cost to get them. That's our best hope. That is our only hope, I think, at moving them on. I don't think it should be a mark on Arteta's record if he doesn't go in the summer. What should be a mark on Arteta's record if he doesn't go and he continues to play him week in, week out? That's where you would say, right.
And the fact he signed him in the first place.
Well, that's not as... the reason I say this, and I really struggle with this topic, and we've talked about it before, is because Raul Sanllehi was hugely involved in the bringing in of Willian. And at the time, like I said a second ago, before Martinez left, Arteta, from what I'm aware of, was basically told that we're not going to be able to do too much in this window. And Willian is available on a free, like wages and signing on fee. And it was basically Willian as an attacking option or no attacking option being brought in the summer. It was him or no one. And based upon what we had, or he had done at Chelsea, and he being Premier League proven, and he was in the top 10 chance creators in the league for that period, to say to Arteta it's going to be him or no one, that is, for me, I can understand why he still went, okay, then we'll take him. Especially considering how underwhelming Pepe had been.
But you've created a narrative that removes any culpability for Arteta there, which we don't actually know to be true.
Though, not in the playing. Like him playing him, completely culpable. Like to keep on playing him week in, week out when we all thought he needed to move on. I hold my hands up and say Arteta was wrong. Like it was a mistake on his part. But if you are a coach of a club and you're being told that it's going to be Pepe on the right wing and Reece Nelson, because Saka at this point had not emerged as a right wing option, it's going to be Pepe, who has failed to deceive so far on the right hand side. Nelson, who has not, for me, other than being a bit of a headless chicken at times, who can't finish. And then Willian, who was at Chelsea, had been one of the top 10 chance creators, had given goals and assists for them in the years he'd been there, or no one, I can forgive them saying yes. What I can't forgive is now that he's here and playing utterly terrible, for him to be keeping on playing. Is that fair?
I think you're being a little bit kind there. I really do. And the reason why is, first of all, the notion that, you know, it's easy for us because Rouse and Leahy's not around anymore to just saddle him with all the bad decisions and say the people that are here is like, oh, actually, it wasn't their fault. But the reality is, first of all, one of the things we do know is that Arteta called up Willian and said, we're going to win the Champions League within 3 years and you're going to be central to my plans. He's come out and said that. If Arteta was being almost blackmailed into taking Willian because there were no other options. And I mean, come on. We know that there are other options in terms of, I'm not saying that Odegaard was available in the summer, but there would have been players like that. We were going really hard over Houssem Ouar, you know, and at the end of the day, there were other places you could have taken it. But Arteta seemed to settle on Willian and be happy with that, you know, whether that's partly Edu as well. But either way, Arteta has to shoulder a fair portion of the blame with Willian. And the first game of the season, he starts. He's not like he was being added to buttress, you know, a young squad and just provide experience. He was a starting player for him. So clearly, in Arteta's judgment, Willian was the right geezer. The idea of, you know, this is a guy, we've paid over the odds in terms of wages because bearing in mind the guy said he didn't want to leave London. Why are we giving him 250 grand a week? You know, and now we've got to try and hope that someone in, you know, he's saying he didn't want to leave London so he might not go to play for Everton or someone. He's not going to want to go to China now, is he, in January, you know, or in the summer. So he's going to be like, no, mate, my kids are doing well in school and I'm earning a pretty penny. Our only hope, I believe, is that we can, you know, offer him and maybe, look, we'll pay off half of your contract, find yourself a new club. You know, maybe you want to go and play for Fulham or Crystal Palace or something like that, you know, and then you don't have to leave London, but you're not up to this level anymore and we won't be doing with you anymore.
Daniel Roberts says no Eddie Nketiah in the squad yesterday. There's no fitness issues as far as we're aware. The only attacking options that we had on the bench, I mean, I'll read you through the bench. We had Gabriel, Danny Ceballos, Odegaard, Willian, Runnison, Aubameyang, Chambers, El Neni and Martinelli. I mean, with Martinelli, Aubameyang and Odegaard as kind of attacking options, I don't think there's a space for Eddie Nketiah on the bench anyway, but do you think there is anything to read into that omission?
It's a great question, Daniel. The reality is his time should be up. He's not good enough. He's not good enough. And I don't mean that with any malice towards him. I like Eddie, and, you know, it's great when you get players that come through the academy, but he's not good enough. And he's had chances. When you get players who are going to break into the first team, like, what do they want in terms of opportunity? No one's going to tell you at the start of the year you're going to start every game for, you know, in the season to get to play yourself into form. You're going to get odd games where you're playing. He's had more opportunities. Look at, I mean, I know this is probably a long debated issue on your channel as well in terms of Balogun. You know, can't get a look in. And for me, shows a lot more promise, even though Eddie's like under 21 goal scoring records is phenomenal. But at this stage, when he's had his opportunities in the first team, flattered to deceive. So I'd like to believe that is his time up. And I just would like to see that we are actively pursuing replacements in the striking department. Just on that note as well, one of the most interesting points of yesterday in terms of tactical strategy, when we went down to 10 men, it was interesting that he hooked Laka and played with the 4 midfielders, with Emile Smith-Rowe acting as the forward runner at times and the person who was going to be played into. Because what Lacazette does in our attacking lineup is he's good at link-up play and he can take it with his first touch and then pop it off to people. But when you go, right, we're taking a player out, Arteta's first option is to take him out because Smith-Rowe can act as the intermediary in Arteta's formation and style of play quicker than, say, taking him out and then having Laka as someone who they maybe then put 2 defenders on. He's getting knocked around and the ball's just not sticking as much. It's very interesting to see where Emile Smith-Rowe fits within Arteta's pecking order within his new attacking system. And I was really encouraged that he's understanding the importance of Emile Smith-Rowe's utility in our build-up.
Clive Palmer in the chat points out that Lacazette had an injury from Saturday, and maybe obviously it's interesting to thinking about kind of where we go with Aston Villa, because Aubameyang came off the bench and I thought was very poor, didn't really commit himself, wasn't really putting himself about on the pitch whatsoever. This is the last kind of question, and it does bleed in a question that was given in by, I'll find it in a second, but it's basically asking about, do you play, it was from Nudran in the chat, do you start Aubameyang over Pepe on the left? And I think the obvious answer to that is to say no, because I think Pepe has been excellent on the left-hand side. Aubameyang's not yet offered enough and has been away as well. My question, to slightly tweak it, would be, do you expect Arteta to kind of fold to Aubameyang being the captain of the club and play him over Pepe on that left-hand side?
This is going to be a really interesting thing. Sometimes when you get a new player kind of in a new position, obviously Pepe's not a new player, but playing him there in this setup is new and it's starting to bear fruit. When you've got a more senior player coming back, how you broach that situation. But for me, it's like, if you've got a player like Pepe, who was obviously really struggling to assimilate to Arsenal and, prove himself, what message would we be sending out to Pepe if we just drop him now when he's been as good a player in our last 3 games as there's been, really? He's scoring goals. He is absolutely scaring and terrorising other defenders. When you look at Aubameyang, who's clearly our most seasoned pro, but has been just in really drab form and struggles to make impacts on the game. If when Aubameyang came on yesterday, he started tearing it up, we might have a slightly different, kind of debate. But right now, Aubameyang's giving you more of the same when he comes on, whereas Pepe is providing something new, something dynamic, and something to get the other team thinking. Whereas, if this was a question of, if you get a chance, who would you most like to have it? Of course, Aubameyang's going to be right up there in our team. But the problem is, it's not about who would you want the chance to fall to. It's that Aubameyang's not getting chances in this current setup. He's just on the peripheries of a game, whereas Pepe, like yesterday, is creating his own. For his goal, what's happening there? Is that real danger? He's skinning one guy, makes on another, and then whack. And don't even get off me. I'm the nuts. That kind of attitude. I like to see it. So, absolutely, you go with Pepe again. And for me, Aubameyang needs to prove that he, is the guy to fit into this team and, add that clinical edge. But he would have to show that he's got other aspects to his game to make that a worthwhile change.
I would be really disappointed if Arteta does bench Pepe or either of him or Saka. Or Saka would it would depend, of course, on the fitness update, which we'll find out in due course. But I would be really, really disappointed. And this is coming from one of the most biggest supporters of Arteta, of course. But I'd be hugely I'm questioning that decision if he does, because it would, for me, in a way, confirm that he lacks a little bit of the front to be able to drop Aubameyang if necessary, and to continue to say to him, look, you need to work your way. It doesn't matter if you're captain. You need to work your way back into the team. I mean, Arsene Wenger did it countless times with the likes of Per Mertesacker, who was club captain, Vermaelen, who was club captain, and didn't play them because they weren't getting into the team. And Arteta needs to have that same mentality with some of the captain choices at the club. Captain does not mean necessarily you are the first name on the team sheet anymore. It used to be, because we made much better choices when it came to the captain. But other than that, it's, for me, it'll be a litmus test of Arteta to see who he picks. That does conclude today's show. Thank you, Johnny, for your time this morning. Do you want to give a shout out to your channel, which you are producing much more regular content as well, which is good to see?
Yeah, absolutely. It's U2B. It's in my little name tag there.
He's always drunk on there, to be fair.
Sorry?
He's always drunk. So drunk opinions.
Yeah, there's a lot of drunk talk. So I'm just about to down a bottle and get on there and make a new little video. So if you like that kind of drunk waffle, do come and follow me. You know, I appreciate all the love like your followers have given, like people subscribing and stuff. Yeah, trying to produce some quite regular content, reviews on games and kind of perspective. There's currently a review on Squadran's Mustafi's Arsenal career on there, so do check that out. And the fact that it's come to an end, it's a lot of cheering, a lot of yes, he's gone. So check out that video. But yeah, any likes and subscribes will be much appreciated. You can follow me at Johnny Cochrane. And yeah, that's it.
Awesome. Fantastic, Johnny. I appreciate you coming on this morning. Ingars, thank you for the last-minute donation. He reckons we should play Emil Smith-Rowe at 10, Pepe at left wing, Saka at right wing, and Martinelli, of all people, at striker to give Lacazette a bit of a rest, which...
I'm down for that.
Yeah, a lot of energy, a lot of pressing, and maybe it's what we need against Villa. We'll have to wait and see. That concludes our shows for Wednesday. Of course, Wednesdays are horrible days for me because I work from 2 to 11 at night on a Wednesday, which is great. But good news regarding that is that I will be publishing an interview today with Udinese's Norwegian centre midfielder Martin Palumbo. And on Saturday, there'll be an interview with Toronto FC's Jayden Nelson, a couple of young players that we're doing as an interview series. So they will all be out. Genuinely, it was one of the most nerve-wracking experiences yesterday doing my first Zoom interview with a player. It was like, put the shirt on, everything, got all smart, and he came in, I'm sitting there going, hello. Very nervous, but it went fine. And the interview will be out a little bit later on this evening. So look forward to continuing that series, but I'd appreciate if you could drop a like on today's channel and subscribe if you're new, and subscribe, of course, to Johnny's U2B channel as well, which I'll leave a link for in the description. We will see you again very, very soon for tomorrow's show as we react to any latest Arsenal news, fitness updates, etc. But it's been a pleasure speaking to you as always. And as always, up the Arsenal and cheerio.